This episode features epic battles between the Academy's strongest mages. Mash will finally reach Abel and fight him. But will he succeed in defeating the Puppet King or become his new henchman? That's what we're about to find out. Mash arrived at Abel's hideout. The villain was very surprised that the boy was able to get to him. After all, he had posted enough guards who should have stopped the wizard, but nevertheless he stood there now. Who is Mash that he could even resist the magic of divine conduction? For a second, the guy thought he'd already been exposed and that Abel knew about his lack of magic, but it seems to have blown over. Since Mash is equal in power to Abel, he must realize that since they're the strongest, those below them are worse. They can't give them anything. They can only take something from the strongest. Abel was convinced that the strongest should not walk under the weakest. It should be the other way around. So those who don't have magic should be destroyed as if they were unnecessary things. The mage felt that simply isolating them from society was too lenient. It was necessary to change the system entirely. Listening to Abel's speech, Mash plunged into childhood memories. As a baby, he was very talented. Even though his father had magic and Mash didn't, he still loved him very much. And he always did everything he could for his only son, even if not his own. So Mash was against such violent ideas. There was no way he would allow the destruction of the weak and those who protected them, since he had been through it himself and knew how important support from the outside was. Abel realized for himself that Mash was too stupid for his ideas. Consequently, he too was an incomplete mage, so he too must be destroyed. The beginning of the battle between Mash and Abel was accidentally caught by love. The wizard unleashed dangerous dolls with acid inside that, corrodes everything. The boy quickly got his bearings, grabbed the head from one of the puppets, and threw it at the others like a bowling ball. That way, he took out all his opponents with a single strike. Mash wasn't so dumb after all. He understood Abel's logic. From what he said, if Mash could defeat the wizard, then Abel was the incomplete wizard. Let's not forget Mash's true purpose, why he came to this wizard in the first place, and that is to save Lemon, whom he has captured and is now sucking the mana out of. Abel once again attempted to destroy Mash with his puppet. Well, this time the attempt failed. The guy made his own terms. If he could defeat Abel, he would tell him where he's keeping Lemon. Here, Abel used a slightly different magic. He took over control of Mash and started beating him with his own fists. Well, that would have been too boring. So Abel grabbed Finn and turned him into a puppet, which he then turned on Mash. Now, Abel began to lay down the terms. The rules of this duel were that Mash was not allowed to touch the doll. If he laid a finger on the puppet, the mage would immediately tear his friend to pieces. Not the real Finn pounced on his friend and started throwing a lot of punches that Mash didn't block. After a few punches, the puppet's weapon simply shattered. Mash guessed that Abel was controlling his puppets with magic threads. So he took his gold coin and threw it with such force that it sliced through the threads controlling Finn, thereby freeing him from Abel's magic. After such insolence, Abel binds Mash with his magic threads, which no one could resist. But not this time. Mash was so strong that he broke several of his opponent's fingers. And then he broke free from his grasp and landed a knee strike. When Abel was already in the air from such a powerful blow, he used marionettification. With this spell, he was able to begin turning Mash into a puppet. The mage was reluctant to use this spell until last, but Mash forced him to. And so, a few moments later, the boy was transformed into a wooden puppet under Abel's control. When the magician was about to take his gold coin from the boy, to his surprise, the boy pulled out a cream cake from the inside pocket of his jacket. It turned out to be nothing more than a distraction. The boy had only been in the puppet incarnation for a few seconds. Abel couldn't figure out how the boy had managed to break his spell. After all, the spell blocked the ability to move any muscles at all. It even jammed the consciousness and subjugated the victim to the master. Could it be a spinal reflex? An example of a spinal reflex is when we instinctively pull our hand away from something very hot. It's a special mechanism to protect the body from external threats. Mash was able to use this reflex to resist the wizard's magic. This time, Abel used his strongest spell, intending to destroy his opponent. He recreated a huge puppet called Moriones, a spider-like creature with multiple heads capable of turning anyone within 100 meters into a puppet. It could use magical threads that were invisible to the naked eye. If these threads touched a living being, they would turn into a puppet. However, Mash easily defeated this enormous puppet. When Abel cast his spell, Mash bent down as low as he could. When the threads were as close to his body as possible, he grabbed them all and tore them. Abel used the last of his doll's strength, but Mash easily suppressed them. The boy was already behind his opponent, grabbed him, and threw him to the ground. In the past, Abel had a kind and gentle mother who came from an aristocratic background but cared deeply for everyone, including the poorest peasants. She taught him empathy and reminded him that they were fortunate to be born into privilege. However, she was tragically murdered one day while distributing food to the poor. The murderer wanted to take all the food for himself and heartlessly killed her. Since then, Abel developed a deep hatred for the weak, the poor, and the unfortunate. He sincerely believed that they were all cruel, greedy, and disgusting individuals. He formed a team of mages who shared his anger and hatred towards the world. Abel lost to Mash and had to reveal where Lehman was being kept. As a gesture of respect for the winner, he promised to release all the puppets he had created. With a spell, Mash freed Lemon and Finn regained consciousness. They managed to defeat evil and defend their beliefs. As a result of their ordeal, they obtained many coins. The friends were grateful to Mash for his bravery in saving them. Dot joined them, and they were all together, except for Lance, who was in the school hallway where he encountered divine conduction. When Rain checked on him, they discovered that Lance was too strong for the academy. He seemed to have found an infiltrator and transformed himself into a completely different person. He was a member of an underground organization that practiced dark magic. Now it was up to Rain to fight him.